This is my dog,
okay.
Tango. It probably looks like I'm touching my privates. I don't know. Can you see him?
There was a brief snout at one point.
Well, that's what we're hoping it was. Otherwise, we're getting cancelled.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Poddywood, the podcast where we talk about movies with the people who make movies. I am one of your co-hosts, Steve Hester, and joining me, as always, is...
It's Andrew Roger Carson. My hair is going a bit super. I need to go to the barbers, but I styled it in that 1999 Go fashion. It's a great film. If you haven't seen it, Steve, which I know you haven't, so it's in the box.
Yeah.
We have yet another Poddywood Interviews episode. And it's a really special one, following on from our last episode with Uwe Boll before the break, I might add. Steve's well-deserved and earned break after something like 10 straight weeks of editing and no nights off.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve. Incredibly fortunate today to have a person who's become a good friend, but he is also an amazing actor. People who have seen the recent TV show Shades of Blue, starred Jennifer Lopez and the late, great Ray Liotta. I'll add the great there.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have seen this actor quite a lot. And there's other films that you would have seen him quite a lot as well. Some which we have even spoken about on previous episodes just recently, Steve. It's a surprise for you, though. But for now, all the way from Pittsburgh, it's our first Pittsburgh guest.
I think so, yeah.
Yes.
I don't remember anyone else over that side of the country.
Yes. It is actor Gino Anthony Pesi. How are you, Gino?
I'm good. How are you? Hey, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for coming on. How are the Penguins doing at the moment?
I don't know.
See, that's all I can think of that links with Pittsburgh is just the Penguins, and that's it, completely done.
It's hilarious. So it's the sport that I follow the least. No, I actually, I enjoy when I go to a hockey game. I enjoy a hockey game, but I have no idea who plays for them. I have no idea how they're doing. I don't even know if it was hockey season without you telling me. But the Pirates are doing pretty good. The Pittsburgh Pirates.
Oh yeah.
Is that football?
Jesus Christ, Steve! You know as much about sport as you do about film. This is absolutely terrible. It's baseball.
I don't even know anything about cricket.
This old man, he played one. He played knick-knack on my thumb with a knick-knack paddywhack.
So yeah, currently you are in Pittsburgh. So let's kind of start your journey back there in your school education. Did you actually start out for drama and things like that?
I liked it as a kid. I mean, I would do the school plays, but I was more focused on... I didn't think it was a reality just because I was told it wasn't. I was more focused on sports. I played football, baseball, and basketball for most of my life. When I was a kid, I mean, I always wanted to act, but we were just kind of told, being a blue-collar kid from Western PA at a time when the internet didn't even exist, we don't do stuff like that around here. That's not going to happen. Meaning, you just have no way. I mean, I didn't grow up with connections to the industry or anything like that. Nobody knew anything about filmmaking. You couldn't hop on a computer and Google how to do this. So for most of my adolescence, it was a dream that I didn't think I was ever really going to have any support. I don't know. If you can remember that time, I know it's been a while, but before the internet existed, where the only pictures you had of a different country were from a postcard or something you saw in a magazine.
Yeah.
Like your imagination ran wild, and now we're so desensitized. But that's how it was growing up and thinking about acting for me. I would watch these movies which were larger than life and that I fell in love with and that gave me permission to feel in an area where we don't really talk about our feelings much, And then when I got to high school, it was actually my senior year where I just made the decision. I had transferred high schools at the end of my junior year, and I came across this drama class, which I took, and my drama teacher, her name was Juliana Van Arsdale. She saw something in me, and she said, I've been wanting to do this play for the longest time here, and she didn't think that she had somebody that could handle it. And she said, I think you could do this. And it was a play by Tennessee Williams called The Glass Menagerie. And and it was the lead, it was Tom. And I had no idea. I had never heard of Tennessee Williams at the time. I was completely ignorant to most of theater, real theater. And I had no idea what I was getting into. My mom didn't quite think I was serious about acting, because I sat her down one day and I said, "Hey, I know what I want to do." And she goes, "Okay, what are you gonna go to school for?" And I said, "I'm gonna be an actor." And I had peppered this throughout the years, but they were like, "All right, just think of a real profession. You're not going to be an actor." And so finally I said this to her. I said, "I'm going to be an actor." And her reaction was, "Oh my God, Gino." And that was her first knee-jerk gut reaction, as in you're going to give me a heart attack. You're never going to be able to survive. You're not going to be able to make a living. Understandably. But then she went to see the play, and so I earned the support of Mom at that point.
Mm-hmm. So, in looking here through your credits, did you do kind of theatre and stuff like that? Did you take to the stage in your early years?
I did. I love theater. I mean, I would go back and do theater for sure. I don't know how people do it for the same role for 2 years, or even a year seems like a long time. I went to school for theater. I started out, even when I was out in LA, I was doing theater for free, and then I got a couple professional jobs. Originated 2 roles, and they were both in Catherine Butterfield plays. One was at Arkansas Rep, and it was called The Sleeper. And one was at the Laguna Playhouse premiered, and it was called Brownstone. I did originate 2 roles on stage, which was kind of cool and also quite difficult because there's no precedent for it. But it was. I'm grateful for those experiences. I'm grateful for every experience, really. Whether it was labeled as positive or negative, I have gratitude for all of it, for sure.
Well, I've got down here your first appearance in a movie. You follow a trend with a lot of our actors that we have on, that among their first credited roles is usually under cop number 2. So you played cop number 2 in a 2002 movie called Minimal Knowledge.
Actually, I want to make things very, very clear. According to IMDb, it's police officer number 2.
Is it?
Thank you.
Let's give it the correct title. Come on.
Really? I read it as cop number 2 somewhere, or maybe I was getting that mixed up with Tommy Hinckley or John Ashton, who both starred as cop number 2 in their first on-screen roles.
I was probably grateful I even got a credit for that, because I didn't even have a line.
Just an extra with movement.
Basically. So my college roommate, he was friends with a guy named Dave Schoner, who produced Minimal Knowledge, who was also worked for the New Jersey Film Commission. But he was Dave and his partner Gregory Corrado, his business partner. They were producing some low budget movies and stuff, and trying to get some stuff off the ground. And I remember he was talking about Minimal Knowledge, and he would tell, as friends do, they try to get each other in each other's projects. And he had me meet Dave once, and Dave was like, "Yeah, have him come out, and we'll put him in it. He can be an extra or whatever." That was like a big deal to me too. I'm just super grateful to be on a film set. And I remember hanging out, when I would find out that movies would be filming in my hometown, I would hop on my bike, drive up to wherever the set was, and I'd be hanging out on the other side of the tape, caution tape, don't go through here. And then I would try to sneak past it, of course. I remember one night or one day they were filming the movie Diabolique. It had like Sharon Stone and I think Isabella Gianni. I don't know if I'm saying her name.
Chaz Palminteri.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I ever saw the movie. I just know that I hopped on my bike, drove across a bridge, which I was not allowed to do, and then snuck onto the house that they were. And I'm sitting there in craft service. I'm not supposed to be there. And I'm just there, and I still remember the scenes where this woman comes out of the house and she's going, Bijou, Bijou, and she's calling for a dog. And this is the scene that I snuck onto the set of Diabolique for. But that's the kind of stuff. I'd be so excited just to be around filmmaking. It was just such a big deal at that time. Now, at the time of Minimal Knowledge, you got to figure, like, if digital filmmaking was coming out, it was just coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So it looked bad. I'm not even sure. Because for all I know, Minimal Knowledge could have been shot on 35 millimeter. I'd have to look up the specs. But I mean, at that time, it was so hard to make a low budget movie look good still. Because when you were, you know what I mean? Because the technology wasn't there yet for digital film. Because I remember they were saying there was something called the magic bullet at that time. So they were making movies, and they might have did this with Minimal Knowledge, where they made the movie and then they supposedly put the magic bullet on it, and it's supposed to look like film, and it doesn't. And
no, it took quite a while for them to reach that level where it didn't look like it had just gone through a render machine or anything, did it? And it's only just started to look kind of normal now. Although, to be fair though, that might just be because we're used to about the last 20 odd years of digital films coming out.
Very true.
Or they found a way to make digital film in a way that, it's the new norm now, and the technology is advanced. It's got like a very cool look, but I have these conversations with people sometimes. I mean, sometimes I still just prefer that film grain.
I prefer my films right up until I think 1985 when it had that. 1985 and everything before it looked like really great and like film, and then sometime in the mid 80s it was like, his films are looking a bit too polished now.
Jerry Bruckheimer and everything was then had all that kind of that like crushed look to it, like that crushed silver
Blue for
look.
the night, orange for the day.
Yeah.
Follow that format forever, no matter who you are. Yes, that's the Simpson Bruckheimer way. But now at least we know, for the infamous Diabolique story, Bill Daly can finally get to rest knowing who stole those sandwiches from that budget. He can actually sleep well now. Also, around this time, shortly after Minimal Knowledge, you team up with a guy called Doug Bass.
Doug Bass. He was my roommate, and for part of the time in LA, and I was the best man at his wedding.
Oh, well, perfect. Hi, Doug. You guys make a movie called Complex together.
Oh,
so you co-direct it and co-star in it. God, give your memories. You're digging them out here, Gino.
Oh boy, here we go. Yeah, you delved. This was not a movie though. This was an independent TV pilot that we were trying to make. And if I have to say, I stand by this concept. Maybe perhaps not the execution, but I stand by this concept. And it was the type of role that I always loved to play, which the lovable asshole. It's like the Vince Vaughn type of Wedding Crashers type of role.
Yeah.
The one that was always girl crazy and the instigator and the fast talking guy. I liked those kinds of roles. And Doug and I actually worked well together in that, in the Abbott and Costello way where, one is, the straight guy to the fast talking, whatever. And I got to be that idiot, the jerk with the heart of gold at the end of the day. I liked that kind of character, and I got to do it, with my friends. I wish that, in a perfect world, we had the resources that people have nowadays. Like at that time, you got to figure, I mean, I was, 22, 23. Once again, that's 20 years ago. And we don't have that. We don't like to make something look good at that time. I think we were shooting on some kind of Canon or Sony. I don't know. We're talking about the early aughts here. So who knows what we were filming on, not knowing what we're doing. And now everything is so forgiving. I mean, like you could get a Canon 5D Mark IV for $2,000, around $3,000, get a couple lenses. You got a whole package for, $4,000, and you can do a lot with just like a Canon 5D, and you can make something look amazing. You and your friends could get together, write a script, film a whole movie, and it could actually look great. You're not beholden to anybody else. I mean, if I had the same energy that I had when I was like in my early 20s, and thinking about wrangling my friends together and being like, let's shoot this, because we were never short on ideas. We were always hungry. I'm sleeping on floors. I'm doing whatever it takes. I don't care. I remember 3 of us were living in a 1-bedroom apartment. I was sleeping in the living room on what we called, you're going to have to bleep this out, Steve, but it was called a flippin' fuck. It was one of these styrofoam couches, and we would roll it out. And I'm sleeping on the floor. And in college, you called it a flippin' fuck. I mean, I did a lot of flipping, not a lot of fucking. But it was...
Sorry, I was going to say, you're absolutely right. I mean, the big famous story recently, and I know he's got an awful lot of industry clout behind it, but Steven Soderbergh shot an entire film on just an iPhone. And, it just goes to prove you've got that technology right there in your pocket.
Yeah, you're going to be jobless from AI soon enough. You'll have enough time on your hands. Go make a movie.
Absolutely. I was just telling this kid the other day at the gym who wants to write, and he's all bummed out about this AI. And I said, hey, you're preaching to the choir. I feel the same way about it. I said, but I don't know what to tell you other than go make stuff now. The amount of time we're standing here complaining about it, what if you put all that energy and effort into just making something that you love? Do what you love while you have the chance to do it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Amen.
After Complex, you started getting kind of more noticeable roles here. I'm going to point to the year 2007, which was the year where Gino really kind of stepped up a little bit.
I wouldn't know I wasn't watching anything in 2007.
Oh, yes. 2007, you've never seen anything from that year. I'm still waiting to find one movie from that year you've seen. Something was going on that year. In 2007, starting off, you do the movie Game of Life with the cast of Tom Sizemore, the late Tom Sizemore, Tom Arnold, still with us, Beverly D'Angelo, still with us, and Heather Locklear, the eternally young-looking Heather Locklear. I haven't seen her recently, but the last time I saw her, she looked completely 1983. So not only did you do this, you also did Loveless in Los Angeles and another movie called X's and O's.
I'm just laughing because it's just, I don't know, I haven't thought about these movies in quite some time, but it was, Game of Life was a drama. I never saw it. I don't even know where you can find it. I remember being in, I think what it was it was either a flashback or an opening scene. I don't know, but it was with Tom Sizemore. And that was it. It was all I remember. Loveless in Los Angeles.
Was this the one you were telling me about earlier?
No, it's not. But I played such a douchebag in it. A guy that was obsessed with his hair, if I remember correctly. My hair! It's so stupid. But probably undeniably awful in it. But I remember I think Brittany Daniel was in it. And a couple of my scenes were with her. And there's that one scene where that cliche kind of, you're going to do the miniature golfing scene, and you like sidle up behind, the female. Let me show you how to do it, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember this moment because I remember this overhead shot or something, and as I get up behind her, my head goes back like, oh, and it was like this strange shot, and I was like, oh my god, it just looks so awful. But then I get tossed into a creek. Shortly after that, some guy comes running out of the bushes. I believe it was played by Dash Mioch, and he pushes me into a creek or whatever miniature golf river, and I emerge from it. And so this is what I did. Yeah. And then in X's and O's, the director was a guy named Kadar Cord. Clayne Crawford played the lead, who went on, you might remember him for reprising the Mel Gibson character in Lethal Weapon, but in the TV show. Warren Christie, who went on to have a nice career as well. He played, I think, like what I would consider like the lovable asshole in that. He's a great actor too. But I just had like kind of a bit role in that movie, and I played this guy who was like a former football player, another douchebag. And he comes in and he's walking. I remember there was a scene in the kitchen where I'm walking around with like a magazine of myself and just handing out autographs. I got drafted in like the last round of the draft or something. And I'm like, yeah, got drafted, and then I got cut. But I'm telling everybody I'll be back on the field one day, and handing everybody out autographs. Just stupid shit. But those were fun little roles and like silly. I mean, like I said, I'm god awful in them, but
But at the end of the day, it makes you laugh about them now, and that's the great thing about it. You've got fun memories about them, and trust me, me and Steve have had some acting roles that we look back now and think, yay,
Yeah.
and it's called Gridiron USA, I believe,
Okay.
or Gridiron UK, whatever it's called.
Look, you see,
And you can see the clip of Steve starring in it right here. There you go.
The
Steve.
problem that I've got with that is, and we will get back to our guest in a minute, I promise you.
no, this is so much more interesting to me.
The problem is that because it was set in the 80s, I arrived and I've got kind of a similar beard to this, not quite as styled, and I walk in there and the director's just like, we're going to have to do something about that beard. It's like, okay, yeah, fine, I'll shave it off. I'm just going to go out to the shop and buy a razor. So I went to the shop, came back, and just as I'm about to go, right, keep the moustache. No, because I look all right with a beard. With just a moustache, I look like I belong on some sort of register. I look like I should be kept at least half a mile away from schools.
Amazing.
It does not suit me at all.
Did he make you keep it for the film?
Yeah.
I gotta see this. Just for that, I gotta see your Steve Hester in a white van look.
You ain't got no alibi 'cause you ugly.
Like,
Funnily enough, the American football outfit I was wearing was white, but
Yeah. No, to be honest, it was good because you were in it and a bunch of other actors that we know. So it was entertaining for what it was. It's about a UK. Well, people can
I
just
wouldn't
go
mind
watch
it as long
I'm
as
not
it
even
got
going to
paid.
promote it.
No.
I'm not even going to promote it. He was rude to me. Anyway, so also.
we got plenty more time for Steve to build more of a filmography. I see many more in your future
You will, definitely.
with a mustache.
See, smouldering.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. We push and push.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, okay, we've got to move on to now. I mentioned this film to you earlier on, and you burst out laughing at me down the phone. So I knew for a fact this was going to be something to bring up. You take the role of cheesy guy in The Hottie and the Nottie.
Fuck you, Steve.
Oh, suddenly me and my moustache is laudable.
I did. I took the role of cheesy guy in the Paris Hilton vehicle, Potty and the Naughty.
Vehicle.
Which I will say, the English poster here in the UK says the #1 film, and then in tiny writing underneath it, at IMDb's bottom 100. I have never seen a poster like it in my life.
Oh, that's genius.
And I have actually seen this. You know what the funny thing about it is? I actually went on IMDb. There's nothing funny about it, I know. But I went onto the IMDb, and you know they have the trailer at the top when you go on it on the mobile version. The first thing that pops up is you as the cheesy guy as soon as someone logs onto the Hottie and the Naughty page.
Why do you got to tell me that? And why do you got to give that? See, you just... I thought we were going to be friends.
That's what good friends do.
Where are we? Here we go.
Terrible.
Hottie and the Naughty. Oh, yes, there you go. And it's before it's even kind of played. Look, there we go.
There he is.
The hair. What is with? Oh, it was supposed to be that the character had hair plugs too, at the time. And I'm like, could we have given him good hair plugs? But so awful. I remember I go out for cheesy guy, and I remember they give me this role, and they were like, rather than cast this other part, why don't we just combine these two roles? And I remember part of the role in this. You said you saw it?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember the part where there was a sailor or a captain of a ship that comes running on and he's like, ahoy?
Yes.
That was me too.
Ahoy!
You're joking me.
I'm
I
not.
never even picked up on that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would have. So they were like, why don't we just make him this guy too? That the guy with the hair plugs at the thing also happens to be the captain of the ship. So I come around and I'm like, sorry, late, ahoy!
Ahoy!
And I come running on the ship. And then I see, what is it, the Naughty? And I see the Naughty, and I'm like, oh, suddenly I'm not feeling so well. And then I take off. I mean, I'm so horrific in these
Was that
movies.
a decision that took place on the day, or was that something that you found out about a week or so before you were filming? When did that happen?
I don't really recall. I think it was definitely not the same day. It might have been a day or two before. It really was not like a long, I did not know when I signed on to it that I was also going to be sailor guy. And I was just like, okay, I got more to do. It didn't really make sense to me, but I was like, cool.
You know what the great thing is now? Is Steve sometimes used the same clips, and I can guarantee you from now on, we are going to have you running on going, ahoy!
Ahoy! Ahoy!
for a clip.
You know what?
No,
I feel like I just made Steve feel better about himself and about his life and career. He's like, now I don't feel so bad about that filmography. It could have been worse. I could have had filmography.
every single guest we have
I
had
don't have
on.
success or money or influence or power or anything which I can laud it, but at least I didn't run on going, ahoy! Ahoy!
Who told you I used to sell Porsches?
Well, it's kind of lucky because around that same time, you are still keeping a healthy film career that's growing. You appear in a movie that I remember called Takers, which around a cast that included Paul Walker, Matt Dillon, Zoe Saldana, Idris Elba, a real who's who. And I believe the main thing around it was, it was Chris Brown's first movie. I think that's really the selling point that they put on it.
Yeah. T.I. was in it too. Hayden Christensen. It was a cool movie to be a part of. And I don't like much of what I do. I usually feel like I've fallen short of my own standards. And I remember there was a moment where I was like, oh, I really like this moment. It's authentic. It's believable. It was a, whatever. And we get into post, and I remember in ADR, they're like, we're going to dub this moment. And I was like, I remember being in the ADR room, and I'm like, what? Why? And they're like, yeah, we just want to dub it. And so they wanted me to recreate this moment where I'm on the floor and Paul Walker is sticking a gun in my mouth or on my head. I can't remember where it was. And there's this part of me where I'm way better about this now. Like, I don't have any qualms about dubbing anything. But I was like, how can I recreate this? That was like a good, authentic moment. It was an effective, truthful moment. And the one part of it I liked, they were gonna dub. It was gonna be, now I'm gonna make it inauthentic. And it was a frustrating moment in the ADR room where I couldn't get over the fact, because I couldn't hear when they played it to me. I was like, what is wrong with this? I was like, it's real, it's gritty. It's like, I was like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we dubbing this instead of just shutting up and dubbing it? God bless him, because he was such a nice guy, John, the director. And he goes, and he saw that I was like unhappy about it. He goes, here, let's recreate it. He goes, lay down on the floor. And so I lay down on the floor, and he stands over me like this. He literally went as far to do that for me, because I was so like, but I liked what I did. And so he did do that. And he was so nice about it and so kind about it. And I was just so young and new, if that makes any sense still.
Well, the good thing is, it didn't halt your ascension, because following that, and this is something I've got to talk on, and this is something we have spoke on quite a few episodes back. You appear as Nick Stavro in Battle Los Angeles.
I do. I had a mustache, Steve.
Well,
it was
to be honest,
month. Horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible month.
Mustaches are not good.
Horrible mustache. It was a horrible mustache.
I've actually got a bit of love for Battle Los Angeles, and I think the main thing is, I was doing my master's degree at the time in film production, so I was going to see every kind of movie possible, and I went to see this, and I thought, okay, this has got a very Black Hawk Down versus Aliens style feel to it. And I was actually surprised when I saw it, because I didn't read too much into it. I went to see it blind. I didn't read any reviews, and I enjoyed it. How about you?
I loved that trailer. The one where the sun goes down trailer.
Yeah.
With that creepy song. It was actually one of my favorite trailers ever. I thought it was a great trailer. My experience in this, so many ups and downs on this movie. So I'll just give you the timeline. I go through a stretch where I wasn't doing so well. I remember going through a breakup. And for me, at that time, it was a really big deal. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I feel a lot. And one thing that's really hard for me to do is get over heartbreak, romantic love. And I was not in a good place. I remember I hadn't worked. It was a lot of months. It might have been like 7 or 8 months. And like some of my side jobs, I was just so miserable. One of my jobs was I was working in a tanning salon. I was bartending. And by this point, it wasn't my fun years of bartending. It was my later years of bartending where I was like this angry bartender. I didn't want to be there. I was not happy to serve drinks. I was not doing well. And to top it all off, I had just gone through a breakup with someone, and it felt like the end of the world. It really did. So I was depressed for many, 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 many months. like I was paycheck to paycheck, clearly, working 3 different jobs, 7 days a week. And I get this script that comes in, and it was this random straight offer. And my agents call and they're like, hey, Gino, this casting director, blah, 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 remembered you from this and they think you'd be perfect for this role. And they're giving you a straight offer for it. It shoots in Florida, blah, 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 whatever. And I'm like, great, I'll take it. And they're like, oh, yeah, ha, ha, ha. Yeah, we're excited to go home and read it, first. So I go home, I rush home, I read it. There was nothing gratuitous in this, nothing against my morals, nothing like that. It was just, I did not think it was good at all. I thought, I was not passionate about it, and I'm being kind in saying that. I just made this decision. I was like, I remember I was reading this self-help book at the time. I can't even tell you which one it was. And it was something about how I was making decisions. And are you making a love-based decision or a fear-based decision? And I started asking myself, if I was not afraid or desperate, if I took fear or desperation out of the equation, would I do this movie? And the truth was, the answer was no, I wouldn't. And if I was directing that project, I wouldn't want somebody coming onto my project that felt that my project was shit. That there was an actor out there that would have been so gracious and passionate and excited to do that role. So I picked up the phone because I couldn't tell you how badly I wanted those 2 hours of my life back after reading the script. And I pick up the phone and I called my agent manager. I said, I can't do this. And he said, Gino, you're going to upset the casting director. You're going to upset this, blah, 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 blah. You haven't worked. And I go, I know. I was like, I guess there is something pure about this that I want to keep pure. And so I guess I'd rather go work at the tanning salon than do this. And it was a choice I made in that moment. And sure enough, the casting director said they wouldn't hire me again. I don't know why. I guess I'm not allowed to turn down a role. But at the time, my agent was disappointed, not like terribly upset with me, but like disappointed. And I just kind of trusted that everything will work out for some reason. About a week later, I get a job writing. I was also a writer. I don't know if you know this, but in my younger years, I was writing like a lot of romantic comedies, a couple that got optioned for production, nothing that ever got made. And this production company liked my writing, but they were doing primarily infomercials. So it was called Raymond Entertainment at the time. I don't know what it's called now, but they hired me to start writing some of their infomercials and possibly develop unscripted stuff. And they were paying me well for a couple weeks to do this. And I was like, wow, this writing job, now I'm doing something that I somewhat actually enjoy. I don't have to go back to the tanning salon, kind of a thing. So I'm doing this, and then I get this audition for Battle Los Angeles. And from what I hear, they can't find this guy, Stavro. And at the time, this was a movie in town. I remember my manager telling me everybody wants this movie. Now, I was releasing this fear and desperation thing. I was just letting it go. I wasn't operating with that. So I started doing things that I would never normally do in an audition. So I read the script, I looked at it, and I'm like, oh, it looks like a fun role. And so I just shaved my head for it. Something you don't do for an audition, typically. So I shaved my head for this audition. I walk in, and there's normally this is a big studio movie. It's a $70 million budget. So usually there's a process, and you're testing for these and, whatever. So I go in, one audition, and I just have fun with it, and I just do my thing. Debbie Zane was a casting director, and I leave. She puts me on tape. That was it. So I go back to my job. I don't think about it again. And I don't ask about it. Nothing. And I'm going back and I'm typing this infomercial for this, aerobic step thing. And and I just get this ping. and I see I have an email and it just says offer for Gino. And I open it, and it was more money than I had ever seen in my life. You know, it was a basic standard contract, but I grew up pretty humbly, small town. I never had more than 4 figures in my bank account at one time. Like, if you can just imagine that. And I just remember I just sat there and I looked at it, and they were offering me the role, and it was like in a movie, like where there was just I just started crying. And I was like, how did I do this? How did I get this job? I just had one audition. I just had fun. There was no pressure. That wasn't even the final amount, because agents go back and they do their thing. I was like, I'm fine with this.
No. Don't scare him off, please.
That's exactly what I was saying. I was like, don't scare him off. And I was like, do not lose this job for me. But they got me a great deal for my first big movie. Mm-hmm. A lot of people auditioned for this role. And Doug Belgrad, who was really high up at Columbia at the time, I'm not sure what he's doing now or where he's at now, but at the time they were like, yeah, here's who we're thinking. And he goes, that's the guy. And this was the story that was told to me by everybody. And I got a chance to thank him at a dinner, a cast and, producer dinner. And everybody kept saying, that's the guy. That's the guy that said that's the guy. He's probably forgotten me, but I'll never forget him. And that was the start of, what I thought was going to be a really, leaping off point. I thought everything was just going to happen from there. It wasn't that easy, and it wasn't easy at all. But it was a great moment. And for this, small town kid to get to do this big budget studio movie, to get to do essentially what that 6-year-old who was watching Goonies wanted to do. And I mean, I will just never forget that moment. And I'll never forget the moments leading up to it, the weeks leading up to it, and the choices that I was making on a spiritual level. And why I was making those decisions, why I was making those choices, and what they were motivated by.
That you're always saying about, you always wanted that adventure with the Goonies. What I can draw as a parable here is the cast of the Goonies from that movie have remained solid friends to this day because of the adventure of making that film. Mm-hmm. You have remained solid friends with all of the people who were in your group of actors from Battle Los Angeles. So in a way, you fully achieved full circle what you wanted as a child from that one movie.
And you got to blow the shit out of aliens.
I got to hold the biggest gun. But yeah, many of us are. I mean, we have this. There was a bond. We're not like I said. Some of us will go years without talking, but there was a bond that happened in that movie. You have to understand, it was also a 6-month process. We had I think 3 weeks or a month of actor boot camp, Marine boot camp. And then there was 5.5 months of actual principal photography. And that's a lot of time to bond with people. And I think that, I know I could at least speak, confidently that a few of them also feel the same way, that there's a place in our hearts for each other. Some of the things that we experienced on the movie, the trials, the tribulations, for sure. I remember after boot camp, it was really shortly afterwards. I remember feeling like I was in good shape, like after boot camp. Because, I mean, you're talking about 120 degrees and humidity down in Louisiana. And it was brutal during those summer months of it. It was August when we were doing that, the boot camp, when we started. And or July and August. So it was like really hot and really brutal in like Shreveport and outside of New Orleans and Baton Rouge. after starting principal photography, after going through this boot camp, I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling like I'm in good shape. I'm excited. And during this one bit, I go flying around the corner, and I remember I was going to have this moment. I was so excited about this moment I was going to have. And you got to remember, I got 120 pounds of gear essentially on my back. I got a 45-pound weapon, and I'm full sprinting towards this helicopter. And I slip, and I roll my ankle, and it's bad. Really bad. Now, I'm a week and a half into shooting. We got 5 months left. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to lose this movie. They're going to recast me. We've barely shot anything. This was bad, okay? So they had to redo that part where I lose my moment, so it gets given to somebody else. And I'm like, fuck, I'm like, I really liked that part. I had something planned and blah. I don't get to do any of that. And then I remember looking at Jonathan Liebesman, and I remember I'm laying there and he's looking at it and he's looking concerned. And I'm like, I just look at him, I go, don't fire me. I'm like, please don't fire me. I remember saying this. I was like, I need this movie. Please don't fire me. I was so upset and scared they were going to replace me at that time. I also didn't want to be a problem on set. Rolled my ankle. I was going full out, fully committed, and shit happens. And I remember this wasn't the end of it. So they hire this guy. His name was Mike Morgan, physical therapist. And he comes on set one day and he tries to like mend up my ankle quickly. And I'm like telling him, I'm like, how bad is this? And he's like, no, that's pretty bad. He tapes it up. Within 3 days, we have to shoot this scene. By the way, scene is not even in the movie. We have to shoot this scene where we're sprinting up 50-foot sand dunes for like 8 hours straight. Mm-hmm. So I got this taped up ankle. It's bad. And we're sprinting up these sand dunes. And at the end of the 8 hours, disc in my back, my lower back, just pops. My legs go out. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Now this, I can't even stand up. I need you to understand, like I could not stand up. They send me to a neurosurgeon because that's who does back surgery. And they're like, you need surgery. You need surgery. You need I can't remember what it's called. I always forget the name of this, but you either need to do this or fusion or something, but you need to do something here. One of these 3 options. And I was like, and what's the recovery on this? I was like, when could I be back? And they're like, oh, like several months. And I go, no, you can't. And I was like, there has to be another option. They're like, there is no other option. They're like, I can give you some painkillers. I go, great, give me painkillers. They shot me with an epidural. They gave me, it was the only time in my life I have ever taken painkillers. I can barely stand. They had to work around my ailment for the rest of this movie. The whole time I can't work out. I can't do anything. I can barely walk. And I just feel like a burden. I just felt like I can't really do my job. Fortunately, I was sitting on a bus for part of this movie, driving it. But that was kind of a bummer. I got to tell you, like that wasn't the way I wanted to spend my time on that movie. And I'm sure if you're a producer, that's really not the experience you want out of your actor, is to have this liability. That's not the way. And every person, they'll all say what they're supposed to say. You're not a burden. You're not a liability. And behind the scenes, you are. Mm. You know what I'm saying? So that part was not the greatest for me.
I mean, the good news is, it is a memorable movie. It's great. The trailer especially was a raging success. Everyone was crazy about that trailer when it came out. And to be honest, I enjoy the movie. I still watch it now. Whenever it's on, I will stop and watch it. and that's a good thing. And thankfully, your career did not come at an end with that, so it did set the stage. You did more and more TV, so you appear on The Client List. You appear in Hawaii Five-0. Of course. I was waiting for that. The Mentalist, which we seem to have had quite a few people who've appeared on The Mentalist on this show.
A few
recently.
of them, yeah.
And of course, Fandom Beware, Screaming Girls Unite. You appear in The Vampire Diaries as the character Maddox.
My mom tried to watch. She's like, I can't watch this. She couldn't get through an episode of The Vampire Diaries. She couldn't. It's crazy. Some of these things that are just massive successes and massive hits, but it has such a cult following, and it was so massively successful for all those people. But I could not watch an episode of it either. Like it was so slow for me. It was so slow, and I was not interested. And I think vampires are pretty interesting, and warlocks and werewolves, all that stuff. I think it's all very interesting, but I was not, as an audience member, it was not my thing.
No, it was just the spawn off of the whole Twilight craze. So you had that, and what was the other one? True Blood.
Yep.
So they were like the competing shows, and they launched.
Now that one was a fun.
That was HBO, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You could tell it was HBO because everyone was naked.
Yes. But one of my favorite turns come, and this is another one that we only just discussed a few weeks ago.
Yes.
42. You are playing the role of Joe Garagiola. And now you're playing a real life person. And the thing is, the real life person was still alive around this time. Did you actually get to meet this person and do research on the character?
No. I did research on the character, but I didn't get to meet Joe Garagiola, and the whole sequence was cut out of the movie. So I worked on that movie for 2.5 months. I think I'm in it for 2 seconds. The whole Cardinal sequence, so like my buddy who played Stan Musial, the whole sequence involving the Cardinals just got snipped. So that happens. I mean, you were just talking to me about your friend who often ended up on the cutting room floor. You just never know. Yeah, I didn't know until I went to see the premiere of it. So I was like, oh, I'm not in the movie.
That's disheartening. And same director as Jonathan. Is it Jonathan Hensley who did that movie? No, it wasn't.
No.
It was...
His name is a really nice guy.
It's an unusual name.
No, it's not even unusual. It's just Brian. Brian, come on.
Oh, Brian Helgeland.
Yes, thank you.
It was Brian Helgeland. Now you see, when I do the editing, it makes me look good.
Dynamite dropping, Steve.
You basically came in there like a hype brother.
What is it? That broadcasting school's really paying off.
Obviously, from there, you start getting recurring roles on shows from here on in. So you appear in I guess it was cast as the reboot of Dallas.
Yes.
You played John. Why the fuck am I giving these names? I'm English, I can't say them. George Tatangelo?
No, George Tatangelo.
George Tatangelo.
Yeah. And, it was CIA, I think, in that. I think. It's been a minute.
That was a few letters.
Yeah, I like so Michael Robin produced that, and he also produced the closer.
Yes.
And he was one of my favorite people to work for, actually. Was just so kind and supportive. He's supportive of his actors. And that company actually makes a point. You could be like a day player. You could be a guest star, one-off guest star. And they'll send you a little note in the mail saying, thanks for being part of our show. Your episode airs on this day, blah, 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 blah. Nobody ever does that. Nobody ever does anything like that. It was just a nice little gesture that their company does. And so I did. I was on that Dallas reboot for about 7 episodes, I think.
Straight from Dallas. I mean, there was a couple of little things in between, but then you land the role that I think most people now recognize you from, the role of James Nava on Shades of Blue, playing the love interest for Jennifer Lopez. Nice job if you can get it, isn't it, Ben? Except you didn't look as miserable as Ben looks. It's strange.
I've only heard about this. I don't know about it. But yeah, I was up for 2 different roles for Shades of Blue. I was up for the role that Hampton Fluker ended up playing, which was Tufo. And it was originally what I went in for, was one of the cops, one of the members of the team. And I remember it was this like really long room. It was narrow but long. And like when you first walk in, Jen was sitting in the first 3 seats, and then the rest of the network and studio, they were just all along that way. So it was a really weird view because they wanted you to, like, I had a chemistry test with Jen, but they're all looking at this profile for the most part, I guess. And then there was a camera, so that's where I had to be. But first I was reading for the Tufo role, and then I would go back out and I would read for Nava. So I remember Jen kind of helped me out here for a moment in this test. It was a moment of, I think, generosity or kindness or something. But I said, "Who am I reading with?" I walk in, I say, "Who am I reading with?" And for the first scene, it was with the casting director, and she said me, and the camera's right next to her, And like I said, this is a very long, narrow room, and I'm like, okay, all right, sounds good. So then I walk back to the door, and I said, I'm going to step into this. And I just do this turn, and I was just like, let me know when you're rolling, and I'm not looking at them, and I have to come in with like energy, and I take a few, and they're like, okay, we're rolling, and I take a few steps, and I can't find the casting director in this line of people, and I'm like, where the fuck are you? And that's literally what comes out. Because I was in the character, and I go, where the fuck are you? And she goes, right here. And I go, oh, okay. I said, all right, my bad. Let's do that again. So this is the first take, and then I go, can I just have a second? And I'm standing there for a minute like this, and Jen says something. She goes, "You from Boston?" And I go, "Pittsburgh." And I'm just so pissed off at myself. I'm not even really like looking at her. And she's like, "Oh," she's like, "some of the things you say, you sound like you might be from Boston." And I just go, "Pittsburgh." And for some reason, everybody thought this was hilarious. And so like they all laugh in this moment, and it broke the ice. And so suddenly I get out of my head and I go. And I delivered a solid audition for Tufo, and it went really well. And I go back out, and somehow I recovered in this audition. I walk back out, and I go in to do Nava, and Nava went great. Like, it couldn't have went better. There were some natural moments and everything like that. And I walked out, and they said, yeah, he's got the role. And I remember we were like, okay, well, which one? The agent was like, which role? And they were like, Nava. He's getting Nava. And that's how that happened. So that's the story of Nava. But initially, as grateful as I am for it, it wasn't the role that I wanted. I wanted the Tufo role. From an actor's standpoint, it was more interesting to me. The way I described Nava is, it was like, he was the moral compass of the show. He was like probably the one character that wasn't like corrupted for the most part. But he's there for her. He's there for her. You know, he's there to serve her story. And that's his primary responsibility. So for me, there wasn't a lot of depth.
You were the arm candy.
I guess. I'm sorry for the arm.
This is where the fantastic Gino Pesi gifs start coming out from this show. And there is a gif that is incredibly popular of Jennifer Lopez walking up the stairs with no pants on, with just this long shirt, and Gino's face like looking at her butt as she's going up the stairs. And that's a gif out there on the internet.
I'll find that one afterwards.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
But you know what? Yeah, the one thing that I am incredibly jealous of you for this show, especially, is you get to work with Ray Liotta, the amazing Ray Liotta, who we sadly lost last year. That I think every single person, it hit them all. I don't think people realized how much they loved Ray Liotta until they heard the passing of him.
Yeah.
It was fun to watch him work at times. It was fun to listen to his off-color comments, or, you know, because in this world where people are so politically correct these days, I don't subscribe to that.
No, us neither.
And he wasn't going to change his stripes, and I appreciated that. And he was in a position where he could, you know. He could be really honest and not be worried about getting fired or anything like that. So I appreciated all that about him. He did have an affinity for theater too, and theater actors. I remembered that. And also there were just some fun moments of him on set where you just never know, because you have that. Do you remember what was that movie? Was it Unlawful Entry with Kurt Russell?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. He just had this gleam in his eyes where he just looked so scary, you know. But when you really get to know Ray, he's got a big heart, a big heart. And I wish I could have got to know him even better. But there's this moment where everybody like toes this line when he's on set, where they're like, which Ray are you going to get? And I remember he was doing this scene. All right, do you know anything about football?
Solo un piquito.
All right,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to get this joke, but maybe some of your viewers will, or this reference. But so Ray is in this moment, and he's like having this, you know, sometimes you just get this Ray where he's like, all right, well, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we going to do? All right, are we doing a scene? And it's so like, you know, he's in one of these Ray moments. So I'm just sitting back and watching this because, you know, you don't know what's going to come. And you have the background actors, and they're trying to do their stuff. And they can't get this cross right. Okay. And they screw it up a couple times. He's like, all right. And we're just waiting for him to lose it. You know, we're waiting for him. Is he going to lose his shit or what? And all of a sudden they go again. And this woman, this background actress, this woman just smacks right into him. And I mean hard. And they just both stop. And it's like, oh, and everybody just stops. And we're like, what's going to happen? And the background actress, she just goes and just walks quietly off, doesn't say a word. Nobody says anything. Nobody yells cut. Nobody yells back to one. Everybody just quietly goes back to one. And I'm just waiting. I'm looking. I'm like, all right, what's going to happen? And Ray goes, and all you hear the director, he goes, okay, we're going to go again. And Ray goes, when is Walter Payton crossing? And
Brilliant.
everybody just busts out laughing. And so there was this moment of like a minute of dead silence, not knowing what, and Ray just like broke the ice. Because you had, and it was one of my favorite Ray moments. My other favorite Ray moment, I'll have to tell you in private, but it was on my last day of shooting Shades of Blue. If something was unjust, Ray wasn't afraid to like stand up for you and say how he felt, and he didn't care who heard it.
That's awesome. I look forward to us sitting one day and really talking about that. Well, as Shades of Blue come to an end, you're also in a show called Ambitions, starring as Greg Peters.
Yeah.
And a smile on your face says there's a story there.
The story is just simply, Ambitions is almost like a nighttime soap, and something that I would never watch but had such fun doing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like, I actually loved this type of character, and what I got to do on it was really grateful for it. And Will Packer, he's hired me a couple times. He was actually a producer on Takers, and Will produced Ambitions as well. He was one of the producers on Ambitions. But I met some friends there that I'm still friends with today. You know, I'm still close with Essence Atkins, and it was fun working with Robin Givens too on that. Her and I got literally close in our scenes during Ambitions, but it was just a fun show to work on. It's one of those things, like, you never think you're going to do it, or like when you're a young actor and what you're aspiring to do, you're never like, I want to do a soap. Most people are never like, I want to do a soap. I had so much fun. I had so much fun doing that. I really wish there was going to be a second season of it. And we thought there was going to be, because for the OWN network, it actually did well on their network. It was one of their better rated shows. But they canceled it, and that it is what it is. But it was fun. It was fun.
To be honest, you've now come kind of full circle. You're now in Uwe Boll's comeback movie, First Shift, that we've heard about all month now.
Yep.
So
me probably more than you, because I've just had to edit that episode. Yes.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. I always like watching Uwe or listening to Uwe.
Yeah, he's another guy who's not afraid to tell it how he sees it, which is always refreshing, thankfully, yeah. So we've got such an appreciation for Uwe, because I never thought in a million years when I contacted him, like, well, just come on, we want to know the real Uwe. And to be honest, so far, it's broken all records in 2 days for our show. He is
That's
actually
awesome.
the record holder for viewing, and it's still going. Steve,
That's awesome.
It's incredible. But yes, First Shift, how did this project land on your desk? And tell us what you can about it.
Sure. Well, I actually ended up coming across it in an unorthodox fashion. Lots changing in this business, and I started thinking I got to find other ways to. There are parts of me that are sort of becoming that young kid again that is like, I just want to do shit. I just want to work with passionate people. I want to work with people that want to not talk about doing things, but let's get shit done. And so I said, well, what did I used to do in my early 20s? I didn't sit around and wait for my agent and manager to get me work. I went out and found it and created it for myself. So you got to understand, I haven't been on these sites in 20 years. And I was like, is Backstage still a thing? Is this casting network still a thing? So I started to just look to see what was out there and who was posting stuff. And I saw an Uwe Boll film, and it was legitimate compensation. I was like, this is a legitimate posting, and it's open to the, anybody that has a subscription to this. So I reach out to him. Within 24 hours, he gets back to me. He says he wants to set up a Zoom. We set up a Zoom. We talk for a half an hour. And at the end of the half an hour, I said, hey, man, it's been great talking to you. And I said, just let me know if you think you might want me for the role or whatever. Just, give me a heads up. He goes, no, I want you. I want you to do it. I go, okay. I said, let me know when you want to shoot this. As if I'm like talking to my buddy. I go, just let me know when you want to shoot this and what I can expect to earn on it, and so I can book out a certain amount of time and all that stuff. He goes, okay, yeah, no problem. So 2 days go by. He sends me a voice memo on Monday, and he goes, so I will pay you this, and we do this, and these are the dates, and blah, 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 and how will that be? And I said, sounds good, man. Let's do it. It was as easy
like
as
he's back with us. It really is.
No, so there's a story there too. We got to dinner one night, and I just can't help it. So when I tell stories, most of the time, like, I'll just mimic everybody. Like, I'll do you guys if I'm talking to somebody else. And, nowadays people get... But nowadays people get offended because you're not allowed to do everybody's accent now. So, we're sitting there at dinner, and for the longest time I'm horrible at German. And I said to Uwe, I go, I'm having a really hard time. I'm trying to do an impression of you, but I'm having a really hard time doing your accent. And he goes, then don't do it. And I'm like, obviously, I should just not do it. So, yeah. But so that's how it happened. And then, and then I made some suggestions about, like, maybe go after this person or that person. I tried to help out in any way I could to get it up and going, but it was as easy as that. And I really wanted to back him, because especially in my conversations with him, completely different to everything I've ever read about him. And it just makes me wonder, like, how all this shit happens, and how people jump on like a bandwagon of, like, I call it the I hate Uwe Boll bandwagon, where it's just so easy. He's just such an easy target, and we've now created this target. And if you don't like one thing he's done or one thing he's said or whatever, then we're just going to trash everything. And I have to think that part of it is because he's always gone against the Hollywood mold or grain. He doesn't follow their model. He does him, and he raises his own funding. So he's been in a position, for the most part, when you're funding your own movies, you don't have to listen to anybody else. Because I don't like negotiations. They're not fun, and I don't like the idea of trying to get one over on somebody. Why don't we just both be really honest about what's fair and stop wasting each other's time? Well, Uwe did that. It was the most painless negotiation I've ever had in my entire life. But I will tell you, I'll use an example, like for when I was a series regular on Shades of Blue. There was all this press, and I did some magazines and I did some articles, and they were asking, what's it like? What's it like to finally do this? And what's it like, to achieve this level? And I go, well, it's like going the distance with a heavyweight boxer, getting the living shit kicked out of you, and then having them pick you up off the mat, giving you a massage afterwards, and then wanting you to tell them thank you.
Yeah.
And I said, what it feels like is that I've earned it. That's what it feels like. And I know that's not the answer everybody wanted, but I did. I was never an overnight success. I don't come from a Hollywood family. I don't come from Hollywood connections. I worked for everything that I earned. Sure, I had help along the way because life's a team sport. We're in this together. We need each other. Everybody gets a little bit of help here and there. That's what it felt like. It felt like I got the living shit kicked out of me and now you want me to kiss your ass. That's what it felt like. So, felt like I earned it. And so I have a shit ton of respect for Uwe Boll for being who he is. He and I don't agree on everything, but we could sit down at a dinner table, and if I disagree with him, I say, Uwe, I think this. And he'll listen. He'll at least hear me out. And sometimes he might change his mind. And sometimes he might stick to his guns. But he'll at least sit there and have a conversation with me. He won't cast me off and say, to hell with you. You know, you don't kiss my ass, so, you know. I have a lot of respect for Uwe.
Yeah, I think
Totally.
for us, when we did the episode with Uwe, it was very eye-opening. And not just for us, I think for a lot of people. And that was the platform that we really wanted to give him to say, look, you know, people will just have you on because they think you're, you know, crazy Uwe Boll, you know, the renegade filmmaker and guy who beats up his critics. And I knew there was something more there. And I knew that it was like, I don't think anyone has actually asked you your version of events and give it to him. And he came across so well on that interview. It was, and he's so articulate with it as well, even though English is not his first language, and he does mess up the odd word here and there, as I'm sure Steve has picked up in the edit. But his confidence is born from the fact that he knows what he's doing, and he is adaptable to it. Now, you know, we're talking about Uwe Boll on your episode, but you know, Steve will
We
just
talked
cut it
about
out
you
anyway.
on his, so anyway.
Yeah. There we go. So that's a bit fair. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really supportive of his comeback in First Shift because, you know, he sold it pretty well. I'm looking forward to seeing that first trailer.
Well, with that in mind, have you got anything else lurking in the pipeline that we can touch on?
I'm recurring on a show right now, but I'm not allowed to say anything about it. But I will tell you about it as soon as I can. I'm literally not allowed to tell you what it is or what I'm doing, but I do have something coming up.
Okay, well, you
Awesome.
didn't hear about it first from here.
But
Yeah.
as soon as we're allowed to, we will sing the praises. And hopefully by episode 100, where I'm hoping you're going to join us for our next quiz episode.
I'd love to. I feel bad that I rambled so often. It's like I just never know how much I should talk
No.
or not talk or what.
Oh,
You know.
don't worry. You haven't broke the record. We'll put it
No.
that way.
No.
You need another 4 hours to get to that. But, Gino, absolute pleasure having you on the show here this week. You are welcome here absolutely anytime you just want to drop by with updates on anything. Keep us in the loop. And we definitely want to see you again.
Thank you. I'd love to be back. Thanks for both of you for having me on. And yeah, just let me know. And Steve, you're a beautiful, beautiful man. Beautiful man. So I appreciate you letting me,
Thank you, man.
give you a few jabs. But you guys are fun. You're both fun. Andrew, in a short period of time, I've just really enjoyed talking to you, enjoyed reading your work. So I look forward to more. Look forward to knowing you both better.
Right, and if you want to talk to us about anything that you've seen in this episode or about any of the other episodes that we've done, including all the movies that we talk about on our regular episodes with just me and Andy, then you can do that at the links below. You can get in touch with us on facebook.com/Poddywood. You can hit us up on the Poddywood Twitter. You can get us on r/Poddywood on Reddit, or you can check us out on LinkedIn, or maybe you could, I don't know, check out some other form of communication that hasn't quite been invented yet because it's still lurking far off in the distant future. AI hasn't quite worked it out yet.
But more importantly, we need some subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
Our subscriber count is growing. The only way you're going to find out when an episode drops is if you subscribe to YouTube, which is where all the episodes obviously come from.
Click that bell.
And not only that, we also have our Patreon, Steve.
Yes, we do. And
Forgot about.
no, it's just that you usually do the Patreon, but okay, I'll do it in this instance. If you want to support us on Patreon, and God loves you, it only costs you the price of a cup of coffee a month, then you can do so by hopping onto the address on screen right now. It should be patreon.com/Poddywood, where you can get audio versions of these episodes a few days earlier, as well as a few little nuggets that we throw out here and there.
Yes, the exclusives. Poddywood After Dark will return. We will get to do those shows again, exclusive to the Patreon.
Wait a minute.
You're
that
editing that one.
That sounds like some Red Shoe Diaries shit. What's going on? Poddywood After.
It's set in a luxurious jazz bar setting. There is music, there is drinks. It's purely audio, but we just get to talk randomly off the cuff about all different types of stuff.
Yeah.
Do I get invited to that?
Sure.
Oh yeah.
You can be our new guest bartender.
Yes. Our bartender's name changes every single episode for the main reason that Steve cannot remember what the bartender's name is every episode. But yes, we have a jazz bar in the background.
Yeah.
And, it's fun. It's
wonderful.
fun. And sign up to Patreon. You can listen to those episodes if you wish. And we will have more coming on.
Yes.
When we can find the time to and Steve finally gets some rest.
But for now, though, it has been, once again, a great big thank you to our guest, Gino Anthony Pesi.
Yep, that's him.
Yep.
Oh, you wanted me to say something?
It's fine. I'll just use the same. And so it's a goodbye from me.
And I'll catch you next week also.
Bye.
Ahoy!
And by the way, I've got to throw out to Ellen. She won the Best Voiceover Award at the awards thing in Canada. So I said I'd throw that out today.